Hello, my name is Michael Lambert. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about Brexit and how it's all going, because it's now 5 months since we broke free from the terrible shackles of being members of the EU. We're no longer ruled by faceless bureaucrats in Brussels, and we're now free to unleash our potential, pursue our course to the sunlit uplands, and to head for what the Prime Minister assured us would be a titanic success. And so I just thought I'd look at one or two things that have happened, one or two of the consequences that have occurred already. And I thought I'd start with looking at fishing and farming and food. Fishing, as we know, has been really decimated because of Brexit, because it's so difficult to ship fish to the EU. And also shellfish, of course, is no longer acceptable to the EU. Our lead negotiator, Lord Gormless, said that he thinks that once French restaurants find they can't get British fish any longer, then they'll probably come to their senses and no doubt back down. But if that doesn't happen, then fishing is really in a very difficult position, because our main market is effectively closed or very difficult to serve. Likewise with farming, it's very difficult now to ship fresh food to the EU because of the delays with paperwork and so on, and all the new restrictions, all the sanitary and veterinary restrictions that are now in place. And so farmers are having a really difficult time. The Australia deal, which I'll talk about later on, is really the absolute death knell for British farming. But in the meantime, they're all struggling and having a very, very difficult time. As are manufacturers of food. If you manufacture food and you want to sell to the EU, you're now subject to all sorts of new regulations and paperwork and delays. And customers within the EU probably don't want to be bothered with all this paperwork any more than our exporters do. And so if you are an exporter of food to the EU, it's become very, very difficult. It's the same with anybody, any small business, any medium-sized business exporting to the EU now. We have placed upon us with Brexit this enormous competitive disadvantage of all this bureaucracy, which people do not want to be bothered with. And so really for all small businesses, the EU is a closed market. It's not available to us any longer because people will not buy from us. Unless we have something that's absolutely exceptional, they cannot get anywhere else. Companies that are a bit bigger, or they've got the money, they can move to the EU, and indeed the DTI, DIT, or whatever they're called this week, they actually recommended some companies to set up in the EU to carry on supplying the EU market. Well, this means, of course, that they sack people in the UK, they close businesses here, and then they go off to the EU, set up, employ people there, pay taxes there. And it's difficult to see how that's much of a benefit to this country. But there's one industry which has not been talked about all that much, and it's an industry which is going to be extremely, extremely seriously damaged by Brexit, and not only by Brexit, by the biggest self-inflicted stupidity that any nation can have committed for years, really. Every year in London there are millions and millions of European tourists. They absolutely pack London for the whole of the summer. It's very easy to come here. But we've let them know that we don't like them. We don't want them coming here. We've done this very simply. In a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, a month maybe, we've arrested people who've arrived without the right paperwork, or where a customs, a frontier guard, a border guard has suspected that somebody might do some work whilst they're here. These people have been arrested. They've been handcuffed. They've been fingerprinted. They've been put into detention. They've had all their belongings, including their telephones, removed from them until such time as they can be deported with a big red deported stamp on their passports. Now this is so draconian, such a serious affront to anybody's dignity, that it has gone everywhere. Not only throughout Europe, but throughout the world. But everywhere in Europe, people know of this. They know of this hostility. They have got the message sent loud and clear by our Home Secretary: we do not like you. And if you come here, we're going to give you a hard time. And so if you're a Frenchman or you're Italian or a Spaniard and you've got another 26 countries within Europe you can go to very easily, why on earth are you going to come here? Risk being put in prison. Risk confronting all this hostility that we've generated towards the EU. There was a guy called Joel Ratner, many years ago, had a chain of jewellery shops. He had about, hundreds of shops. Every high street had a Ratner's in it. He went to a conference and he was talking about his shops and he thought he was being funny, but he said our merchandise is just crap. And all the newspapers printed this. This story went everywhere. And within a matter of months, his business was in trouble. Within a couple of years, the whole business closed because of that one remark. And this instance of locking up innocent people arriving at the border, at the airport here, is such an incident, because everyone will know about it and everyone is going to turn against us because of that. And I think people visiting the EU on holiday in due course are going to find a certain amount of hostility towards us because of this. Now, there are all sorts of other industries that have been affected. I mean, take financial services. The city has always been the jewel in our economic in our economy. And what has happened is that firms have started to move. Well, immediately after Brexit, firms started to move to the EU. More and more firms are moving. And fewer and fewer firms are going to come and set up in London. Why would they? Because London is no longer the huge centre that it was. And financial centres are like planets. They create their own gravity. And so if a centre is very big, it draws in more companies all the time. As it gets smaller, as people drift away, its gravity weakens all the time. And in the end, you get to a point where nobody wants to come and set up in a declining financial centre. And of course, we're entirely in the hands of the EU as to what financial services we're going to be able to offer it within the EU anyway. So industry after industry has really been badly affected. Look at road transport. We can't get any drivers now. There are no end of transport companies can't get drivers because previously they've all been from Eastern Europe. People, market gardeners, farmers, can't get people to pick fruit and vegetables because, again, they were all from Bulgaria, Romania and so on. And so, almost everywhere you look, there are problems which we have deliberately created or knowingly created, which are making life very difficult for us. Then, of course, there's the Northern Ireland issue, isn't there? Where we've got Lord Gormless, who negotiated the deal, signed the deal, and shortly afterwards decided he didn't like it, he wanted to change it, and is now getting very cross because the EU won't agree to change it, the Northern Ireland Protocol. He says it isn't working. He even wrote in the Daily Mail that the EU were being ridiculous, they were point scoring. He said there was no evidence of smuggling, therefore they're making a fuss about nothing. They are asking for documents when there's no need. And of course now the new leader of the DUP, Edwin Poots, a very clever guy. He thinks that 6,000 years ago God got up one morning and thought, I'll make a universe this week, and went to his workshop and made a universe. 93 billion miles across, 93 billion light years across. He built it in a week. That's what he believes. And he says there's absolutely no way he's going to accept the protocol. Absolutely no way whatsoever. He said to Andrew Martin, he said there's no need. What are they worried about? They can trust us, presumably, to not not let goods go across the border. And so the EU is being asked, well, okay, you've got borders all around the EU which you control, but for Northern Ireland to Ireland, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. There's no evidence of smuggling, and we'll make sure stuff doesn't go across the border. And there's entertainment, isn't there? We can't send our musicians and our actors to Europe anymore. Too much bureaucracy, too much work. So that's going to have a big effect on the arts. And you have to ask, what's all this for? Why are we doing this? Everyone can see when they're not getting excited about the end of the lockdown, not getting excited about the nice weather, and not getting excited about watching stuff on Netflix. Everyone can see that this is catastrophic. Brexit is an absolute disaster. And what's it for? It's for two things. Taking back control and being able to do deals all over the world with countries who are just queuing up to do deals with us. Taking back control. Control our frontiers. Okay, well, we've got Mrs. Patel, as she's giving these border guards the right to put anybody in prison if they don't like the look of their passport. But the cross-channel, illegal cross-channel movements are increasing all the time. Never been more. The French don't want people hanging around Calais. Why would they? If they see them getting in dinghies going to come across to England, they're glad to see the back of them. And that's something you can't control. There's no way you can do it. What are you going to do? Sink the rubber dinghies in the channel? So more and more and more are going to come. And when they get here, what do? We put them in old military camps. Some issue last week, wasn't there, about some 100 men in a barracks somewhere, a former army barracks, surrounded by barbed wire, 100 men, one shower, no internet connection, treated like criminals because they're foreigners, and the Home Secretary doesn't like foreigners. And then there's trade deals, isn't there? The whole world, every country in the world, everyone can see we are desperate for trade deals. I put a tweet out about this Australian thing a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I hope the Australians have forgotten the fact that we just dumped them in 1972 when we joined the EEC. Got a lot of responses all saying, oh, no, we haven't. And one actually wrote back and said, no, we definitely haven't forgotten. We see this as payback time. And the Australians are just playing with us. They know how desperate we are. They'll give us a deal, eventually, when it suits them, entirely on their terms. And what is that deal for? It's so that we can let our farmers all go broke, go out of business, and import all our beef and lamb from 11,000 miles away. Great message for global warming, isn't it? What happens in 5 years' time when global warming is even more of a problem, when everybody's really panicking about it, and they say we can't have these long shipping journeys, and taxes and duties on fuel are going to have to go up 10, 20 times because it just is killing the planet. What's going to happen then when the price of beef and lamb goes through the roof? Could well happen. Anyone living in the UK is almost certainly living within 50 miles of a livestock farmer. And we're going to put them all out of business and buy from somebody 11,000, 12,000 miles away. This is insanity. Nobody's much interested in giving us a deal. We have Liz Truss. She gets very, very excited when she gets a rollover deal. She's got lots of rollover deals. It was on Twitter the other day. She's got a rollover deal last week for 3 new countries. Liechtenstein, the population of 33,000 people. Iceland, population of 250,000. and the giant Norway with a population of around 5 million. This is the Liz Truss who said at the time of the referendum she didn't want her daughters growing up in a world where you needed permits and visas to set up a business in Europe, and where business would be obstructed by unnecessary barriers. That's what she said. Nobody wants to give us a deal. Where are we going to get a deal? Johnson was desperate to get a deal in India, wasn't he? And that was why India was kept off the red list until his visit, which was eventually cancelled anyway. And as a result of which 200,000 Indians came in, and we now have another COVID crisis building. Desperate for deals. Johnson thinks he's going to get a deal with America. Biden hates him for what's going on in Northern Ireland. Kamala Harris hates him because of racial remarks he's made in the past. Are they going to be giving priority to a deal with the UK? Where else are we going for deals? The whole thing is absolute madness. But things are not going to go on as they are. We've got a Prime Minister who wants to be a president. He wants to be a dictator. Look at him inviting Viktor Orban, the first European head of state to come here. A man who's regarded throughout Europe as being a really nasty dictator. That's who he wants to cozy up with. He wants to be president. Look at him with his big jets covered in flags, covered in Union Jacks. And this boat, this ridiculous boat, this boat is just so absurd. The proposal is to spend £200 million on a boat in order to drum up trade around the world. Okay. The way you get trade around the world normally is that you have various trade missions, and you'll go to a capital somewhere, and you'll take some businessmen with you, and or at least the Secretary of State for Trade or Foreign Trade or whatever will take some businessmen, and they'll have a little trade fair or something and meet people, and they'll have a dinner and perhaps at the embassy or maybe at a posh hotel in whatever town they're going to, and then they all get back on the plane and come home again. The proposal now is this, that we'll have this boat which is supposed to cost 200 million. Now, by the time Serco have got involved with their consultants and Ernst & Young and all these other people will have to bring in all these consultants in any government project, so the cost is probably going to be twice the 200 million. Queen doesn't want anything to do with it, by the way. She knows that there are people queuing in food banks. She says she doesn't want anything to do with the boat. What will happen in future under this proposal is that this boat will go off, let's say, to Uruguay. It'll sail off to Montevideo, a couple of weeks to get there, and it'll park up in the port. And then the Secretary of State for Foreign Trade will get on a plane and she'll fly with a load of businessmen at quite a lot of expense, all business class, first class, and they'll fly to Montevideo, and the car from the embassy will be there, a minibus, it'll drive them all down to the port, and then they'll get a little tender across to the this ship, and they'll go on board and they'll lay out a few tables with some stuff on, and then they'll invite the Minister of Cheese Imports or what it is for Uruguay. He'll come on board and have a look around, and they'll give him a nice dinner, and he'll say, well, thank you very much, we haven't really got anything we want, but anyway, it's nice of you to come, nice boat, bye-bye, and that'll be it. And the minister and all these other businessmen, they'll get off the boat and they'll go back to land on the tender, and then they'll go back in the cars to the airport, and they get on the plane and they'll fly home again. And then this boat, which is costing with a crew of 30, 40, 50 people, will then chug off to Shanghai to impress the Chinese. This is just insanity. And of course, the Prime Minister, the President and his wife will be able to, from time to time, use it maybe at weekends for social occasions, who knows? Or maybe they'll send the boat to Jamaica to try and get some business there, and maybe the President Johnson and his current wife will fly out and enjoy a little bit of a run around the Caribbean. Who knows what they're going to use it for? Who knows what's in his mind, except that he wants to be president? But it looks to me as though this is all going to start unwinding a bit. Sooner or later, we're going to have to impose border controls. Food prices will go up. There'll be food shortages. Furlough will come to an end, and businesses are going to find it very, very difficult, if not impossible, to sell to the EU. This failure to get any proper trade deals is going to become more and more of a problem, more and more of a panic. And sooner or later, I think it's very, very likely that people are going to turn against the Prime Minister for this dreadful, dreadful, reckless deception that is Brexit. There is nothing positive that has come out of it at all. But anyway, that's what I think about it, and I'm afraid I'm not going to get over it. Ed Miliband says we should all embrace it. I don't want to embrace the sinking ship. And so we'll see what happens. But if you watched this far, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.